The Football World Cup starts next week, and I have decidedly mixed feelings about the whole thing. I'm really grateful that the Premier League is taking a break because my own team, Chelsea, isn't in the best of form right now and could do with a month or so to work things out. And I always enjoy watching the World Cup. I like watching teams and players that I don't know too much about. I like seeing different styles of play and different combinations of player than we might be used to. I like sitting down to watch games like Senegal versus the Netherlands and having no investment at all in who wins, just being able to enjoy the game without any nerves. I love the fact that most of our country is united, all together we get behind one team. We put our local rivalries aside to support the nation, and I even cheer when Harry Kane scores. But this World Cup isn't like any other. It's being hosted in Qatar. Much can and has been said about corruption in football's governing bodies and the way in which this decision was made. But that isn't even the worst of it. This World Cup is not like any other. As COP27, the Global Climate Change Summit, ends, this World Cup will begin. It will begin in air-conditioned stadiums because Qatar is so hot. It will begin in stadiums built from scratch with fans staying in purpose-built accommodation because the infrastructure just wasn't in place before. All these using enormous amounts of energy at the same time as world leaders meet to try and reduce our consumption. This World Cup isn't like any other. It takes place in a country with a terrible record on human rights, where women face discrimination in law, where a person's sexuality can lead to imprisonment, where conversion to Christianity is likely to lead to rejection and discrimination. This World Cup is not like any other. All of those stadiums and infrastructure has been built mostly by migrant workers in very poor conditions, some of whom have died as a result. This World Cup isn't like any other, except that the last one was held in Russia, a state not well known for its tolerance or freedom or ethics. This World Cup might not be like any other, but like almost every World Cup, it includes teams from nations like Iran, where telling others about Christianity is illegal. Countries like Ecuador, where the indigenous people are treated as second-class citizens. Tunisia, where criticising the president is a criminal offence. Countries like the USA, which maintains a detention facility in Cuba to get round its own laws on prisoners' rights, and which still uses the death penalty. Countries like our own nation, which sends some of those seeking asylum and safety to Rwanda. So as I've said, I have decidedly mixed feelings about the World Cup. And you might not be interested in football, you might be, but you've already decided to boycott the World Cup over some of the things that I have mentioned, and I wouldn't blame you if I did. That may well be the right thing to do. But I do have another suggestion. Here's what I've decided to do. I'm going to pray. Each time I watch a game, I'm going to pray for the nations involved and indeed for Qatar, who are hosting it. I'm going to pray for freedom of expression, for freedom of a religion, and for the human rights of those who live and work and dwell in those nations. I'm going to pray for unity and equality and life. I'm going to pray that God would raise up a generation of people who would stand for his kingdom values in those nations, in our nation and across the world. I'm going to pray that there would be transformation. I'm going to pray during this World Cup. And I'd invite you to pray along with me.